Hey, good afternoon, everyone. I promised to start at 3 minutes past the hour, so I would love to get us started. Thank you so much for joining us for this MBA sample class and discussion of Bentley's MBA program. I am Emma Emmer, Director of Strategic Programs here at Bentley, and I'm joined by two of my colleagues, Iris Bergero, MBA Program Director and Professor, and Sean Johnson, who is in our admissions office. And so you'll get to hear from all of us today, although I will argue Iris will be the most interesting of the three of us. But I am going to delay that experience. They say that some kind of, I don't know, intrigue will make the heart grow fonder, um, by just centering what we're going to see today in a larger context. So um, Iris is going to be showing us a preview of one of her courses from Bentley's MBA program and our MBA program suite. For students interested in other ones of our programs, often electives can be taken across our program, so certainly don't run away yet. I think you can learn something really interesting from Iris today, but I do want to center us more specifically in our MBA. And in so doing, just give us a sense of why we're talking about this sample class. And so Bentley's MBA and our MBA program suite, which is extensive, and you'll see more from Sean about MBA program options, is a couple of things I want you to walk away with and not forget at the end of this conversation. The first is our MBA is really focused on ensuring we are building leaders for tomorrow. And I would say that definition comes through in a lot of different features of the curriculum. So first and foremost, we have a real focus in our curriculum on ensuring that you have your business foundations, the language of business, the strength in business, while also integrating many other themes into that coursework. So things like technology, analytics, global cross-cultural management, ethical leadership, sustainability, all can be part of your program because we at Bentley believe that business leaders need to understand those things in order to do business for good. Bentley, Iris loves, always talks about this, and I will steal it from her. Bentley has one of the oldest, if not the oldest, ethics center that is associated with a business school in the United States. And we care about that really deeply. We're creating leaders for good. The MBA program is looking to craft and hone leaders that are going to take their impact beyond Bentley's walls and into the world. And Iris's sample class is a really good example of that. As I mentioned within our MBA, I certainly don't want you to leave here thinking the only thing you can do is one thing. That is not true. We have a number of different ways you can customize your degree through different majors and tracks that kind of specialize you after ensuring you have that business foundation. And all of that is in pursuit of a really strong career that allows you to take those skills and apply them beyond Bentley's walls. We ensure that all of our MBA students have incredible access to career support services, to alumni networks, to our broader community, to opportunities, so that they are launching their careers in the ways that they are seeking to. And so with that, because truly I want us to spend most of our time with Iris, I'm going to pass it off to Iris to give us a sample of her course. The one thing I'll say before I do that, and Iris, sorry, I'm going to delay us even more, is this is, and Iris, you tell me if this is fair. This setup is wildly atypical for a Bentley course. So while we're calling this sample course, I would almost say this is sample content. It is sample opportunity to get to see this incredible faculty member in action. But typically, our courses are wildly interactive. They're very applied. There is a lot of discussion, cases, and group projects, and opportunity to really engage each other. And that is a major part of the learning. The fact that you can only see my face and Iris's face and Sean's face flies in the face a little bit of everything that we do here. And so I just ask you to think about what this might look like in a slightly different context, knowing that you're going to learn some really interesting things from Iris today. All right, Iris, I promise I've now done my drum roll for you as long as I possibly will. We'd love to hear from you.
Thanks, Emma, and welcome everybody. Really appreciate you being here with us today, whether in person or watching this later on. And I do want to echo what Emma said about this format. You'll see as I go through that there are some places where I've actually hoped to pose questions. We can't do it in this format, but just know that if this were in a real class, there would be times when we would be shutting off the slides and having a conversation about things. So I'm Professor Iris Burdrow. I'm in the management department, and I am also the director of all the MBA programs. I've been at Bentley, scary to say, for 29 years. It's a continually changing and evolving organization, and so have really enjoyed the career here. And one of the things that I have particularly enjoyed is being able to continue to learn everything about my field of interest, which is in intercultural work and international management, and really understanding how people work in and with other cultures. And I say that in air quotes because the first thing we're going to talk about is what do I mean by that word? And so this is a sample of one of the courses that I teach here on global management. I also teach other intercultural work, and in particular, what I really love to do is to take students abroad and to take the classroom and the students to a different country. I've done this in France and South Africa and Scotland, and I find it's one of the best ways to really learn about yourself, but also about the world. So this is a snapshot of what I would cover in a typical global management course. So, as I said, starting off with, what do we mean by culture? In any sort of a learning environment, whether it's in a formal classroom or just in your own personal pursuits of expanding your understanding of things, we always want to be careful when we use terminology and assume that everybody has the same definition of it. Culture is a word that we hear all the time in many different contexts. And there are, as we'll talk about, different layers of culture, there are different levels of analysis of culture, there are different applications of this term culture. And so anytime that you want to understand, assess, measure, improve something, you always want to make sure that you have a clear definition of what it is that you are looking at. What is this concept? And so there are a number of different definitions of culture. I hone in on this one. It is one of the most commonly used. Geert Hofstede is one of the sort of the landmark researchers in the field of international management and intercultural work. He did his work in the 70s in IBM and looked at holding the organization culture constant by looking at only IBM employees, but looked at them all around the world and developed a set of values that are applicable to understanding workplace behaviors in different countries. So he provides this definition of culture, the collective programming of the mind that distinguishes the members of one group or category of people from others. So it's how we put a boundary around people's view of the world. We also talk about, the software of the mind, sort of the underlying heuristics that guide us in how we see the world, how we move through the world, how we interact in the world. And the principle here is that this is very much defined by national boundaries. And there's a lot of talk about why we look at it, why we look at culture in our work in international management and intercultural work at a national boundary level. but there are different levels of culture. And so as you can see from this model, you can talk about culture at an individual level. Me, Iris Bergero, what are my cultural values? How do I see the world? How do I understand the world? I, at Bentley, work within the management department. The management department has a particular set of values, attitudes that might be different from somebody in, for instance, the math department or in global studies, right? We can look at the organization. Bentley University is different than other universities in this area because of who we are, who our DNA, what our DNA is. We can look at, if we move out from there, at professions. I'm an academic, you may be an accountant or a finance person or an engineer or a medical practitioner, and that industry boundary gives you a view of the world because of that industry and the values that it holds, right? And then we can move out from there and say that there is also a global level of values, sort of a universal. What does everybody in the world care about? Emma mentioned that we have the country's oldest Center for Business Ethics in a business school. There is a researcher who has looked at the ethical principles that are common to everybody in the world. And he found that there are actually 4 principles that everybody in the world would hold dear. So we can look at culture from different levels. We use the national level because there is a boundary around a country that holds within that country a legal system, a political system, a social system, a history, a geography that is different from its neighbors. I am Canadian and now American, a dual citizen. I can recognize the Canadian piece of me. And as I go home to visit friends in Canada, I can see differences. Even though we're a very similar culture to the US, there are differences in that. Our legal system is different in Canada than it is in the US, and that's the national boundary level. So I want to show you a clip. This is from a documentary called American Factory, and this is the trailer for it. And the story behind this documentary is the Chinese billionaire reopens a factory and hires 2,000 what we call blue-collar Americans. And in the early days, there's really a lot of hope and optimism. But that then gives way to, as setbacks are hit, some clashes between the Chinese management and the American workers. And so as you watch this trailer, I want you to think about what you see or hear that could be sources of conflict.
We stand here today with a plant that's closing, but I'm extremely proud of the people that work in this plant here.
For a year and a half, I didn't have anything.
We lost our home, we lost a vehicle.
I have struggled to get back to middle class again.
This is a historic project that is going to help grow this community, give people jobs, and give a future to your kids and my kids.
Where you sit today used to be a General Motors plant, and now there are over 1,000 employees working here.
Is this a union shop?
It is our desire to not be.
他炸玻璃他必在，他什么信任什么缺陷。
我们的口号：地震行动，不进退。
We hope someday to get this good.
他动作不要慢，一直教，一直教。
美國管理唔曉你哋。 俺做地不来管的。
There have been 11 complaints filed. Some workers claim unsafe working conditions and unfair treatment.
Doing the same thing over and over again, that wears on your body and your soul.
压力是很大，确实是说白了话，任何人在这个地方。
They told me that they had to be here 2 years, away from their family, no extra pay. I made it their house, they made it my home. We've just bonded.
I'm a riser. 很佩服美国人还能上2班倒，不用像我们想象那样子去为了生活失去很多东西。
那个慢亏比工会破坏更厉害。
Now the whole world is watching.
Nothing in America has changed in terms of working people working hard. What changed in America was rich people deciding they wanted to rewrite the rules to take advantage of people.
You never give up on the American dream. To me, that would be un-American.
So you can sort of imagine this process stretched out over a couple of years and what happened. That initial euphoria, that hope, there is somebody who is going to come and reopen our factory. We were going to have work for the Chinese. There is an opportunity. We will get into the American market. We'll learn how to operate a factory within the American context. But then there's things that start to happen that show that each side has a different approach to communication, to decision-making, to understanding the value of work and work relative to home and personal life, and what you give up and what you don't. And in the discovery of how the other looks at the world and why they do things the way they do, there becomes a shared understanding, what we call this mutual adjustment. Doesn't necessarily mean that you change your values, but that you understand the other and that you don't look at them negatively because they have a different perspective on the world. So with that context, then how do we actually really measure this? What is it that we're really looking at? And in culture, we talk about 4 things. The VABNs of a group: values, attitudes, beliefs, and norms of behavior. And Lane and Masnevsky, they summarize this as culture is a set of deep beliefs and underlying values that are shaped by a group of people to guide that group of people's interactions with each other. The values and beliefs are taught to successive generations as truths and are often so implicit that group members are unaware of the beliefs and values. These beliefs and values are manifested in norms and artifacts in the culture. So, what do each of these things actually mean? If we look at values, these are the things we believe to be important in our lives, our work and our interactions. They define for us our priorities and they guide our decisions. So we may have a belief about how important it is to earn money versus to have a relationship or to gain prestige or to take on a leadership role, right? We can assess to what extent these things are important, i.e. valuable to us. Attitudes, these are our emotions and beliefs towards a particular thing. And we might think about our attitudes as a compass. We tend to have a common response or orientation to particular issues or events. For example, we would have an attitude towards child abuse, clutter in our home, spending money on things we don't really need, and violent movies. And as I read off each of those, you may have noticed in yourself that you have a certain level of response, a certain orientation, good, bad, right? And that's your attitude towards things. Beliefs are what we accept and trust to be true. These are not necessarily grounded in facts, right? But they are our beliefs, and they're derived from our perceptions, our experiences, and what I call our line of sight, the point of reference from which we see things, right? And so we can think about our beliefs as things that we have come to understand from our perspective. Norms of behavior, what we abbreviate as norms, are the ways in which we act and interact. So these are habits of behavior that feel familiar and acceptable to us. For example, a norm of mine might be that I always smile when I say hello, and I always say hello when I pass someone in the hallway at work. Well, when I lived in Russia, this was actually a negative thing. In Russia, the norm was that you did not smile, that you didn't trust somebody that would smile, right? For me, that's normal. So now that we have this working definition of culture and understand the characterization of culture as values, attitudes, beliefs, and norms, let's come back to the American factory. And we can begin to understand the potential sources of conflict if we map the values between the Chinese and American culture. And Hofstede gives us this great tool. You can find this on his website. The URL is here. And he allows you to compare countries on his mapping of cultural dimensions. Now, he uses the dimensions of power distance, individualism, motivation towards achievement and success, uncertainty avoidance, long-term orientation, and indulgence. And these all mean something. So if we look at power distance, for instance, at 80, China sits in the higher ranks of a power distance. That is a society that believes that inequalities amongst people are acceptable. And so the subordinate superior relationship tends to be polarized, and there's no defense against power abuse by superiors. And individuals are influenced by formal authority and sanctions and are in general optimistic about people's capacity for leadership and initiative. People should not have aspirations beyond their rank. That's the Chinese belief. The United States scores very low on this dimension at 40, which really underscores the American premise of liberty and justice for all. And this is evidenced by the focus on equal rights in all aspects of American society and government. Within American organizations, hierarchy is there for convenience, and superiors are always accessible, and managers rely on individual employees and teams for their expertise. So both managers and employees expect to be consulted, and information is shared frequently. And communication is informal, direct, and participative. So you can see, based on just that one value measure, where conflict can arise if there isn't an understanding, a common understanding. So let's talk about how to get to a common understanding. And I want to give you an example of where understanding may differ. So in your mind, I'm going to just ask you briefly to think about, what is this an image of? What do you see in this image? There's some possibilities. Some of you will say that this is a rug, belongs in a home, on the floor. Some of you will say this is a souvenir. I myself have brought one of these home from Turkey. This is something that is made in another country, and you bring it back as an artifact of your travels. Some may say this is a place for prayer. Now you can understand that these three different interpretations of this one item might cause conflict if the person who thinks this is a rug walks on it, but it belongs to the person who thinks this is a place of prayer. And that's where cultural conflicts can arise. So let me just talk a little bit about what I bring to my understanding of the world. And this is reflective of all of us. I, large I, what do we all bring? So the first is what we call cultural knowledge, an understanding of cultures and the ways in which people may or may not vary in their values, attitudes, beliefs, and norms. This takes time, but you've already had some experience, whether through travel, whether through your own living in different countries, working with people from other cultures. You've gained some understanding of this cultural knowledge. The second is cultural competence, and this is the ability to work with people who are different from us. Here, intercultural effectiveness is a great metric for us to use. To what degree are we effective in learning about other cultures and applying that learning to new situations? To what degree are we interested in developing and maintaining relationships with people from other cultures? And to what degree are we capable of managing the stresses of being in and with people from other cultures? By the way, there is an instrument that measures this. Lastly, do we have a global mindset? Are we oriented towards thinking positively about other cultures and recognizing the benefit of cultural diversity in organizations and work teams? The question is always raised, can someone learn to be interculturally effective? Can they develop a global mindset? Or is this an immutable personality trait? You either have it or you don't. While there's some debate in the literature, there is certainly a lot of knowledge and skills that can be gained through purposeful education and experience. There's enough known about the benefits of international education programs to know that just going to a new location is insufficient. I liken this to, trying to learn finance by walking through a bank. You may pick up some tips, but you're unlikely to gain a full understanding of the field nor navigate the nuances. The key elements of an effective international learning sojourn are preparation, observation, reflecting, mentoring, and support. Preparation, what can we learn in advance? At very minimal, what languages are spoken? What's the currency, the legal system, the basics. In addition, you might do some preliminary exploration, the country's culture. Maybe you look at the work of Martin Gannon, who uses metaphors and paradoxes to describe different national cultures. We want to have a mentor, someone at home or abroad who can act as a cultural translator, help us make sense of the things that we experience. Experiences can be really overwhelming, with each day a new myriad of new data to interpret. And we quickly forget what we experienced or learned yesterday because today brings that whole new set of experiences. So keep a journal, not just a diary, but a log of feelings and thoughts. And then at some point, we want to verify our interpretations with the locals. General locals, not just one specific one that we met at a bar. And we really want to ensure that what we think we've learned is actually accurate, or we may find ourselves in some pretty sticky situations when we try out our newly learned behaviors. So the key point here is that, traveling can be a great experience, but it can also be so much more. You can have a rich learning opportunity leading you to develop important skills for your career and your life. So let me talk about this issue of line of sight. As we consider the world around us, we want to pay attention to two things: our mental models about what represents important data, and our line of sight, the place from which we see. The place from which we observe dictates what we see, and our place is determined by what we have access to, where we choose to travel, how we choose to travel. Have you ever noticed that you see a lot more detail in your own neighborhood when you're the passenger in the car than when you're driving? You also see much more sitting high in a bus than when in a sports car. If you don't travel into the neighborhoods away from the tourist sites, you will not see how normal people live. You will see how tourists live. It's important to recognize our strengths and shortcomings in observation skills, the rules against which we interpret things we observe, and how quickly we jump to evaluation without processing what this might look like through a different mental model. Let me give you a quick example. Imagine that you're attending a school in India, And while there, your new local friends invite you to a nearby ancient temple. And as you approach the temple, you see rows of shoes outside the entry, and your friends take off their shoes, adding them to the collection. You hesitate. Your line of sight is that it would be rude to take off your shoes when going into church. A temple is a religious house of worship. Therefore, this before you leads you to evaluate the behavior as rude. What if you're able to shift your line of sight to align it with your Indian friends and what they understand, that the spirit rises up through the body, starting at the feet, and to take off your shoes eliminates the barrier to the spirit. Therefore, not taking off your shoes would be an insult to the spirits. Same behavior, different interpretation. A compelling experience that illustrates the power of line of sight is that of astronauts when they first see Earth from space as a floating blue marble. Each has described this experience as soul shifting, bringing into perspective all the things we fight wars over. Learning to recognize your own line of sight and being able to shift it to another's line of sight is a useful skill for intercultural work. So, hope I've sparked some interesting thoughts for you, and hope to see you in the program and in my class one day. At this point, I will pass this back to Emma.
Thank you, Iris. This is always so very interesting, and I hope folks know they should be using the Q&A feature if they have any questions for Iris. Iris, I'm going to take a moment, though, to ask you one question before we move on to the admissions section, which is, you did an extraordinary job pointing towards why this kind of global competence or this global mindset might benefit someone, or at least how to grow it. Do you mind centering that even more broadly in the MBA, and kind of where does a course like this fit into the types of things that students are learning, kind of the constellation of things that students are learning here at Bentley?
Sure, it fits in two places, really. For one, this course is an elective, so it's a choice. And so, not everybody is oriented this way, and there's limited choices that you have in a program. So, if something is more compelling, this may not fall in. But it is, I think, a topic that is the infrastructure is sort of the ground on which all others sit. There is no functional area, industry, organizational situation where you are not working with others. And the extent to which we have moved people around the world means that you are likely to be working with somebody who comes from a different context from you. So my line of sight is biased, but I would say that this is a foundational understanding for all of the other disciplines. The other place that this sits logistically within the program is in the global travel courses. So we have these global business experiences, GBEs. I run one to Scotland. I believe I lose track of which ones there are, but we run one in January, one in March break, and one in May. And these are 3-credit courses. So it's the same expectations around preparation, work, academic work, but you travel for 7 to 10 days with the faculty member with your class. So the entire class moves to a different location in the world. They are typically around, or they're always around, some disciplinary concept or title. Mine is Decision Making for Sustainable Organizations. And so there will be site visits and experiences during that trip that align with that academic playground. But then there's also the cultural experience. And so you also learn about how does this play out in a different part of the world? What does artificial intelligence mean in Sweden? How does sustainability look in a ancient Scottish whiskey factory, right? So there's two ways in which you can get at this topic throughout the program.
Awesome. Thank you, Iris. Well, I want to make sure we talk a little bit about admission. I know every time I hear Iris speak, I'm compelled to join the program and join her coursework. And so, Sean, I'd love for you to help us understand how one can join the program and what the admissions process looks like and what the application timeline is.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for that warm, pass over, Emma. I know we don't have too much time left, so I promise to be brief, but, of course, clear through all these requirements. But yes, we do require all these standard list of application requirements from you when going for the MBA program as well as our other graduate programs. So, of course, what we need is an up-to-date resume from you with your updated education as well as your updated professional and leadership experience. And if possible, we would prefer to get your LinkedIn profile as well. We're very huge on career development here at Bentley, and your LinkedIn profile is a huge part of that as well. We also do require one recommendation letter from you. We do prefer it to be from a professional recommender over an academic one. So, of course, coworkers, managers, past coworkers, past managers. But if you don't have too many of those, never fear. We do accept recommendation letters from past educators and instructors as well. So professors, absolutely fine as well. Going from there, we do require one application essay, and you will find different essay questions within the application itself. So please feel free to pick whichever question you feel that you can answer the best. We are looking for between 300 to 500 words. And if possible, we would always, recommend, of course, submitting an optional personal statement as well. I know personally myself and my team, we do love, of course, reading about you guys, seeing where you're coming from, and more about your motivation for pursuing graduate studies. Going from there, we are test optional for the GMAT and the GRE. So please know without these test scores, you won't be negatively impacted in any way, shape, or form, but they can of course be used to, strengthen your profile, giving you a higher chance of being admitted, and also a higher chance of receiving a higher scholarship as well. But like I previously mentioned, please know you will not be negatively impacted in any way, shape, or form without those test scores. Going from there, for our international applicants, we do require an English language proficiency test. We do accept the TOEFL test, the IELTS test, as well as the Duolingo test. And if you do have any questions, if you may be waived off from this requirement, please don't hesitate to reach out to us at our main email inbox that I'll throw in the chat after I'm done speaking, but it's applygrad@bentley.edu. We'd always love to connect with you further if you have any questions about that. Going from there, we do, of course, always require all the transcripts from the university that you have attended. And if you are an international student who did graduate outside the United States, please know that we do require a NACES transcript evaluation. So please know that any member of NACES would work for this process. The most common ones we do see in our office are WES, World Education Services, ECE, Educational Credential Evaluators, and finally TEC, which is the evaluation company, formerly known as Spantran. And my final requirement, if you're going for the full-time MBA program as well as the full-time STEM MBA program, we do require a short interview process, which is a chance for you to meet with, one of our admission staff, like myself, in a one-on-one setting to talk about, of course, your background, your leadership skills, collaboration skills, and all that great stuff. And yes, of course, going for a graduate degree, much less an MBA degree, of course, is a huge personal undertaking as well as, a very big financial undertaking as well. Happily, here at Bentley University, we do of course, award merit-based scholarships that are available. They are very easy to apply for as well. I know we're talking maybe a little bit late in the game, but whenever you guys get a chance to take a look at the application process, please know you will see a question within the application, just a yes or no question. Would you like to be considered for the Merit Aid Scholarship? Please click yes for that before submitting, and that's all you have to do to be in consideration for the Merit Aid Scholarship. Like I mentioned before, please know it's merit-based and not need-based, so it's based on the full strength of your application. So all those requirements we just recently went over, from your resume, work experience, transcripts, recommendation letter, application essay, and GMAT and GRE test scores if you are submitting them. All these are, of course, are valuable, resources and, go in part with the Merit Aid Scholarship. And please know, around 85% of our students, do receive some form of merit aid when they are going for the programs. Yes, our application deadlines. So we do currently still have our applications open for the spring 2026 term as well as the fall 2026 term. We did just recently pass by our priority deadline for the spring term, but we do still have our standard deadline left, which is December 11th, 2025. So, not right around the corner, but 2 months will catch up very, very quickly. But happy to let you all know that we do still have our fall priority rounds all available at this time. Our round 1 deadline is November 1st. Our round 2 deadline is December 14th. Our regular decision deadline, February 1st. And then kind of our last, date for an international student and F1 visa-seeking students, June 1st of 2026. And then finally, our very last deadline for domestic students and seventh transfer applicants is August 1st of 2026. Yes, and also so there's some more options to learn more with at Bentley as well. So say for example, if right now is not a good time for you to pursue graduate studies or a master's degree or an MBA degree, there are other ways. Of course, you can still elevate your profile without getting very nitty gritty deep into a program. So here a few options here at Bentley. We do have a wonderful leadership accelerator. This program consists of 3 different leadership assessments to determine your leadership style, 3 days of in-person classroom training, and 4 hours of one-to-one executive leadership coaching. And apart from that, we do have an Essentials in Management mini MBA program. So this mini MBA certificate program has been designed for those wanting to grow and sharpen their knowledge and skills around key business elements. Through interactive engagement and experiential learning with a cohort of peers, participants will kind of gain a confidence and strategic, business skills. And yes, of course, I always will definitely invite you all to, of course, stay in touch with us. Please feel free to, scan any of these wonderful QR codes on the screen. As I said before, if you're not, of course, ready for an MBA program or, ready for a graduate program at all, at this time, please feel free, you're welcome to join, an EPE course, which is an executive and professional education course. You're welcome to set up a consultation, with either anyone on our admission team. We have multiple openings from our wonderful student ambassadors to also our wonderful admission officers as well. Happy to talk with you through those next steps, and absolutely welcome you all to, of course, follow us on Instagram as well as LinkedIn. We'd love to stay in contact and keep you all updated on all the exciting things happening at Bentley in the coming years.
Thanks, Sean. That's super helpful. I hope folks on the line have a basic understanding of how to join our program, but I want to underline what Sean just said, which is our admission office is really devoted to supporting each student through the process. And we know that you have your own personal questions and own personal curiosities. And so please do be in touch. I did, Sean, put the email address in the chat. So folks, please use that in order to get in touch. Let us know you want to talk to Sean, you want to talk to me, and we are more than happy to support you through your consideration of our programs and where you might fit. Of course, I'm going to leave the Q&A open for just another moment or two in case folks have very specific questions either for Iris or for Sean. But in the absence of that, Iris, I'd love to ask you as MBA program director, so less so from your global management mindset, but if you could help folks understand what you think makes Bentley's MBA program distinctive and unique.
Sure.
I would love for you to do that.
Happy to. So one of the things about an MBA degree, there's lots of them out there. It is one of the most popular master's level degree. And it's a generalist degree, right? I always say an MBA helps companies run better. I mean, basically, regardless of what disciplinary area you're in or what function you hold or what hierarchy you are within the organization, an MBA helps you see the whole and understand your part in it and affect positive change. Where Bentley is really uniquely oriented towards offering a superior, what I think of as a superior experience, a learning experience, is that we have an integrated curriculum and faculty. We are a university within a business school. That means that we have arts and sciences and business all in the same arena. And so I can bring somebody from natural and applied sciences into my class to talk about what does sustainability mean from an environmental perspective. I can bring somebody from global studies in to say, what does it mean to have a different history, and how does history shape our view? I brought in somebody from modern languages to talk about accent bias in organizations, right? And so we can cross-populate our ideas outside of our own traditional disciplines. And this is really an important asset to the learning, to see things from other disciplines, to understand that, finance isn't just about finance. Finance works within a context. And what is that context and how do I understand that? And if I want to really take a deep dive into finance, I can do that. So I think Bentley is particularly well suited towards that. And again, I can't stress, enough our DNA in ethics, in interdisciplinary understanding, and in really taking a human perspective on organizations.
Thank you so much, Iris, both for being an extraordinary program director, an extraordinary faculty member, and for doing this session today and reminding us about our own perspectives and how we can grow those in a business context to forward organizations.
Sure.
I thank everyone on the line for joining us. I hope this has piqued your interest into what you can learn here at Bentley. I hope you'll stay in contact with me and Sean as you consider us. And we also welcome you at all of our future events. We have lots of ways to continue learning about Bentley's MBA program, whether on our YouTube channel or through further events. So stay in touch. Have a great day, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
It's on.